Welcome to the Workforce Situation Room, where we spotlight some of the promising and innovative solutions that address some of our most pressing workforce and economic challenges. Our mission at Workforce Solutions Borderplex is to power businesses to prosperity by empowering people with tools and opportunities to reach their potential in the workforce. I'm Bianca, your host, and I stand alongside our ladies of leadership at Workforce Solutions Borderplex with Leila Melendez, our CEO, Alma Aranda, Workforce Development Director, and Karina Castillo, our Senior Research Analyst. In this room, we all believe every situation has a solution. For today's episode, here's the situation. So today, the crew landed at Aztec Contractors. I'm here with Alma, and we're going to be talking to Frank Spencer, President, and Jose Carlos and Edmund. So before we actually get too deep into talking with our guests, I want you to tell the viewers a little bit about how this relationship with Aztec and Workforce came to fruition.
Sure. So as you know, Bianca, and for many of our viewers, our purpose is to help employers and help them through developing their workforce, right? Give them those resources. And that's primarily what we do. Through that, though, is how we work with individuals to help them skill up and just really connect them and make sure we get the right fit for them.
Okay.
So what happened was Frank Spencer is one of our board members, and we have been discussing some of the issues that employers are going through right now, finding qualified labor, and just the tight labor market has created a lot of burdens and barriers for many employers. So simultaneously, Frank and his team were doing some recruitment efforts. And then they came to us, to Leila and myself, and told us that one of their experiences and feedback was that, sure, there was some, people young adults that were interested, but they wanted to know if they had an internship program. So this is something that we've done for years, right? So we call it a work-based learning opportunity, a summer employment, paid work experience. But what Aztec was looking for was something a little bit more formal. And so Frank, Nancy, and their team actually developed something very robust, an actual formal internship program that employers, so that was really something. And that's just kind of where we really started kind of trying this pilot out, so to speak.
Okay, and you say pilot, and I'm glad you said that word, because we're also using this buzzword called Nextforce, right? And
yes.
And that's this. It's very fresh. It's very early, but I want to say that this is probably the first program. Can you tell the viewers what Nextforce means?
So the Nextforce concept was, if you remember one day we were whiteboarding in my office, and what we're looking at is really the Nextforce is the next future generation of workers, right? So in our world, we call that youth, and youth is ages 16 to 24. So you've got a lot of 18, and plus who don't necessarily consider themselves youth. But one of the things is that, and this is, what happens with a lot of formal organizations and quasi-government organization, government itself, is we throw out the solutions without necessarily knowing for sure if that's going to stick or if that's what this new workforce is looking for. What do they want? What are they looking for? So the first time we tried this out was with the Rise and Grind, right? A lot of feedback, a lot of learning lessons. We did this with a version of digital transformation. And then this was really taking it to an employer. So we were really excited to try this out.
So Frank, thank you so much for partnering with us. This collaboration has obviously done well for your business. Can you tell us a little bit about what's happened since day one?
Sure. I just wanted to piggyback a little bit on Alma's statement. So about 4 or 5 years ago, we made a conscious decision to start to create a training program to train from within, because we could not find local talent. We struggled to find superintendents, project managers, project engineers. So we made a conscious decision that we were going to create Aztec University and start training from within. Obviously, we get caught up in the whirlwind, and those things kind of take back seat. But as we started traveling around the country and spending some time or getting invited to career fairs, we started to realize that a lot of the students, they weren't looking for permanent employment. They wanted internships. So we got back, came back to El Paso, sat down with our executive team and said, look, we need to come up with a robust internship program. And I have to give credit to the executive team. They did a tremendous job truly putting together a very robust program. I mean, this thing was very detailed, laid out.
Super planned out, yeah.
I mean, we had the summer sessions, we had spring, we had fall.
The partnerships with UTEP and the referrals.
Right,
Yeah.
and so, we had a big powwow. Once we sent it over to Alma and her team, we sent it to UTEP, and we had them kind of take a look at it and poke holes in our program, and they came back and they're like, this is, we've never seen anything like this. This is solid. So, I mean, credit to the executive team and the effort that they put into thinking about all the different things that they needed to put in place to ensure that these students had a tremendous opportunity to learn and grow. And so that's exactly what they did. And so we sat down, we put it out. We had a big welcoming session on our first internship. We had everybody from Aztec here at the office. The students came in, they got to interact with everybody, talk to the different positions that we have here at Aztec. And then we did formal interviews in that same day. Mm-hmm. And so then we came out, and that was the first internship. And since then, we haven't looked back. We did our summer session, we did our spring, we're in our fall, and actually we're fixing to start our fall session.
Oh, wow.
Is the one that we'll be starting this here pretty soon.
So then it keeps evolving, and you have these two interns here. I'm going to jump over to you, Jose Carlos. You were one of the first interns, so tell me a little bit about what that's been like. What's a day in the life of Jose Carlos on the job?
Yeah, thank you, Bianca. So I was really excited once I started here at Aztec. And a day in the life is just every day it's learning something new, Mm-hmm. And being a student, a working student, you get to learn not only in school, but then you implement some of the things that you learn in school to the field in the real world, and then vice versa, So sometimes you learn things that you didn't know and actually apply them in school here as well. I'm a project engineer intern, and some of our responsibilities will also include, we coordinate with subcontractors, mm-hmm. We take care of all the technical disciplines required for a project to prosper, and really just working and helping the highly qualified professionals here at Aztec. And everybody has been really good to help the interns out. If I can come to the office, ask questions, they'll be answered. So I am very thankful for that, and it's been a really cool experience.
How about, do you have any projects that stand out just off the top that do you get excited about?
Yes, exactly. So actually, I mean, I've always liked construction, but until I started working here, I think I got the construction bite. So what that is an industry, that means that
we need to coin that.
Yeah, so the construction bite means that you're going to be doing this for a long time. You find a passion in what you're doing, and it's something that you just really want to get better at, keep growing and learning. Right now, I'm working at the Harmony Joe Battle project. So mm-hmm. We're building a school, and it's something exciting is that eventually, when that project is finished, you'll drive by and just remember that you worked on there and you were there every day putting in your best effort.
That's
awesome.
So cool that you're driving down the freeway and you look and see something.
I was part of that, right?
I built that.
Yeah,
that's
really
awesome.
Cool.
Really awesome.
How about you, Edlin?
Nice.
What's a day in the life with you? What are you doing on your internship?
So I was previously the marketing intern, but when I started here at Aztec, even though I was just an intern, they gave me very heavy responsibilities. Like I was able to fully brand their sister company Aztec Masonry and Concrete, and I did the full brand identity for that. And I was also tasked with writing and producing all the content for social media. Mm-hmm. And so because of that, I get to travel to different job sites. See, the difference between Jose Carlos and me is I get to go to different job sites where he stays in one. But because of that, previously I did like reels for Instagram and Facebook, but eventually they started expanding, and I was able to write blog articles for LinkedIn, and through that I was able to do a lot of stories with not just the interns but also the employees at Aztec. And so I get to uncover all these stories from decades of experience, and I learn all these nuggets of wisdom from people I've never met before. And it's not just about construction, but also about their life. And it was a very wholesome internship. And they eventually, after 2 seasons of my internship, they eventually extended me a full-time offer. And so I'm now a content and brand specialist for them. And as at the time that we're filming this, I just graduated yesterday.
Oh, wow.
Congrats.
Yay. Way to go.
Something that
That's
I
awesome.
feel like is worth sharing though is that when I did the internship open house, the very first internship open house with Aztec, I was the only one who was representing the liberal arts. I was in a room full of engineers and I didn't know what I was doing.
Get it, girl.
But that meant I had no competition. But something that I do want to point out is that in the construction industry, it's a very interesting industry, and it's also very meaningful. And there's a lot of it's very meaningful in a way that you're not just part of a product, but you're part of the city itself and the region itself. And creating that connection, there's a lot of purpose to being an intern for a construction company. And I think that's something that I want to leave to all my fellow liberal arts
That's awesome.
majors.
That is awesome.
It is.
So, one of the reasons that we support these interns and we do that is because twofold. Yes, we're helping the employers, but also one of the things that we've come across time and time again, especially in our region, is primarily most of our college students are working college students. They're just not working necessarily in their own field of study. And that down the line, even upon graduation, that lack of experience, even though they might have experience in, let's just say, retail or, and it's work experience is work experience, but it makes a difference when it's related to your own field of study. And we've also seen, time and time again, the data that we've gathered, it actually increases persistence rates and better grades. So I'm really interested, why an internship? Like what attracted you about wanting to do an internship versus maybe a direct hire, something like what Frank spoke to?
Okay. So if I may go back like a couple years ago, I actually worked as a cashier at one of the establishments inside Fort Bliss. And during that time, I was just, I was working, and I was a full-time college student. I was also a single mother. But then I realized, if I'm making this much as a cashier, then maybe I can afford to make this much as an intern. And I know there are unpaid internships out there, but I couldn't afford that.
That's one of the
I'm a
biggest
single
barriers.
mother.
I'm so glad you touched upon that, because
Yeah.
there are internships out there and a lot of employers offer that, but it makes such a difference when it's a paid internship because it becomes an equity and accessibility issue. So that's a great point.
Right.
As a business owner, as a small business owner, we don't have a lot of resources, right? We don't have deep pockets to pull from. And so we were very adamant about that this internship needed to be paid, okay? And so again, collaborating with our partners here, they were able to assist us with that. And so it's a win-win for small businesses that can tap into those resources, but also be able to provide them financial reward for the work that they're doing.
So I just to tell viewers and explain a little bit about this program that we're collaborating on, we call it WBL, and the acronym in itself means work-based learning. So work-based learning is individuals like Jose Carlos and Edlin that are looking for employment, but what we do is we subsidize wages and we cover the costs of what this job's going to be or this internship's going to be as Workforce Solutions. So essentially we're that extension of an HR department and payroll on top of it. So they receive so many hours on this internship. But what's most important is that we pay what we consider a living wage, and it fluctuates every year. This year we're at $15.91 an hour, and last year it was a little bit lower, but we stress the importance of a living wage being necessary for an individual to be able to have a good quality of life, internship or not. So I'm really glad that we pointed that out. And I didn't know that about you, Edlin, to hear your story, so thank you so much for sharing that. So did you want to share a little bit on why you chose?
Well, I mean, one of the greatest benefits that you get from working in the industry is you get so much value added onto your portfolio in a matter of 4 months, 5 months, right?
True.
So as an individual, right, you become a lot more competitive than to all your other colleagues at school. I don't know if that makes sense, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the intent.
Not saying that I'm
Yeah.
going to go somewhere else, right? But
and that was one of the things that as we were traveling the country and then meeting with our local talent here, again to my point about they wanted internship programs, and I think it's primarily to Jose Carlos's point is that they want an advantage. They want to step up from the competition, right, in terms of these jobs that are out there. So and I got this feeling that a lot of these students wanted that internship to build that true work experience so that when they go out to the market to market their themselves and the work that they want to get into, they have an up on anybody else that's interviewing because they have real experience.
Right.
So I think that's you're going to see a lot of that in the coming years. You know, our market has changed so much. I think all industries have changed.
That's true, especially after COVID. So Frank, you sit on our board as the board chair, so you have a very interesting fusion of perspectives. Knowing our strategic plan at WSB and as a customer with the Nextforce program, what message would you give other employers that might consider this program?
So, as we mentioned, there's a lot of value that this internship program has brought to our organization. But the biggest thing for me, as you know, being here local, have been on the board for over 6 years now, and I chair it, is the fact that I didn't know that these services existed. So the simple fact of spreading that message throughout our community is important, especially to our local businesses that, again, our small businesses that, again, might not have the resources to be able to do these types of things. They have, WSB to tap into. And so I think that's the biggest thing for me as chairman, as an active member of the board, and as a business owner, is how do we get this message out? How do we educate our businesses in El Paso to partake in this? Because for us, the biggest takeaway is that we always have great local talent leave El Paso to go to these cities like San Antonio, Dallas, Fort Worth, Houston. Some of them go out of Texas, right? And so there's no need. There's great companies here locally that can offer our interns, our students, great work, good pay, and good benefits. And look at all the things that we've done downtown, all the revitalization. There's so many outlets for these younger generations to stay here. And so I think that's the other biggest message is we need to get other businesses to partake in this type of program so that we can retain local talent. I mean, in Paso, all of us, we're all about familia. We don't want our kids to leave. We want them to stay home. But we also have to provide for them good paying jobs, good benefits, so that they are wanting to stay here. And obviously, I think our community is doing a good job by providing outlets for these kids. So I think that was one of the biggest takeaways, and that's a message we want to continue as we go out and meet with businesses, and we strategically set ourselves up from an economic standpoint. How do we hear our businesses and provide solutions for what they're needing? Because we're all suffering from lack of personnel, trying to find talent. So we have great universities, we have great colleges here, great trade schools. We need to tap into those resources and ask more out of them.
Absolutely, agreed.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think, what there was a lot of takeaways from this initial pilot. Like Frank mentioned, his executive team put a very thorough internship program. I mean, it kind of even was a learning lesson for us on how to restructure this a little bit more to really kind of use it as best practices. But I think also one of the things that we realized was when Frank was like, "Oh, you can do that? Oh, you can do." I'm like, "Well, yeah, we can do that."
We need to do a better job.
So yeah, that was absolutely. So then that kind of gave birth to one of the things that we're going to be trying out this fiscal year, the BEERS, which is business, education, expansion, resources, and solutions, and having these mixers. Because one of the things that Aztec did for the interns is they had a mixer first, and then the interview process. So we're going to have mixers for the businesses to talk about some of these resources. And just kind of so that's just one of the things that kind of came to fruition from this. But I think that's when Frank is talking about, talent leaving, we know that our education systems are producing top talent.
Yeah.
And we know that through data because we can see where they're going and the employers and the wages that they're getting, and they're phenomenal. I think one of the biggest myths that we have to bust is that opportunity isn't here. So it's great when an employer like Aztec does this, because it kind of really sets an example of what we can do. It's a great company, great competitive wages, and then really kind of all together and part of this ecosystem of economic development is highlight the benefits of staying here. So it's not absolutely the family, but then also the quality of life and El Paso's fun. And so I think right now where we're seeing the Borderplex area is just kind of really on this, and I say this word all the time, Bianca, on this precipice of like this change that's coming, right? And I think it's so exciting to see, the internships kind of be that. I love the way you said it. I don't like, you get to drive by and see that you're a part of that permanent fixture and Jose, so I think that's great. And that's such a big lesson for other young adults who might not necessarily be thinking construction's the way to go, but wow, like that, to drive back, and we do that all the time. Like we reflect on programs where we're like, yep, we did that. So there's just a lot of takeaways here.
A lot of wins.
Absolutely. And I think what we're going to do for this next fiscal year is really kind of put it out there with the employers, provide those resources. We've done some internal policy writing to make sure that we can kind of spread the wealth, amongst employers, but really kind of get that out there. So working with all the schools as well is going to be really important.
I think that there's two bookends here that I'm noticing, and you all mentioned being part of something. So we get a lot of feedback, or we look at feedback from the Nextforce on national levels, anecdotal feedback. And purpose is one of the big things that these graduates are looking for, something that gives them fulfillment. So I can see how this internship is contributing to that. But also something that I notice is that you mentioned these mixers, and we're going to do the same thing, same initiative with businesses, but these mixers are bringing in this sense of not purpose, but family, this togetherness, and even just, I think that's what these internships expand into too. You feel like you belong, and the same thing's happening with one of our other podcasts, Rooftoppers, that we had on the last episode. But this family feel roots our talent in with these employers and keeps them here, I think. And then on top
we
of
have
that,
such a great, workforce and ethic talent.
Yeah.
Like that's like in our DNA, right? Like this is who we are at our core. So it's like bringing all these things together. I think it's just, that's why I keep saying the precipice of everything.
The other thing too that I think is important to mention is that, as an organization, we take the responsibility to teach our interns, but it also goes the other way. They're teaching us.
absolutely.
You know what I'm saying? Is
Yes.
that this new generation has changed so much. We have technology has changed the way we do construction. So, I say that construction is kind of like it's like the cowboys. It's the last of a dying breed. Those that truly understand the trade from the ground up are far and few. And so now trying to get kids or people just to go back to trade schools because we need plumbers, we need electricians, we need welders. And so I think that there's another piece that they bring to the table where they're also teaching us from that technology standpoint. We have our super out there that, again, we do everything on an iPad. We don't carry plans anymore. Everything is on our iPad. And so we can, at any point, we can, dial up on a portion of those of the plans and try to figure out what the issue is on site. Well, a lot of our older generation, they don't know how to use the iPad, and so they've been beneficial in helping them understand how to utilize their technology.
That's
so
cool.
So it's a two-way street, and so I think that that's the unique thing about doing this, and the importance of other businesses are taking advantage.
One thing I wanted to share, because it was great the way the intern said it, is as we've worked with Nextforce and all these, different initiatives and pilots and just getting feedback from them, is that I think the younger workforce generation is really looking for purpose, not just necessarily chasing the dollar, although that's vital and important, right? Absolutely, but beyond that. And so for me, the way you guys have expressed the purpose in the work that you're doing here, I think that's really meaningful because that's lasting. I mean, that building will be there for, generations, right? And the impact that has, and there's just so much value. So I think this is it's phenomenal.
I know. I love the connection of it.
Absolutely.
Then there's other takeaways for the interns. in what I refer to as the process. You have to embrace the process
Mm-hmm.
because everybody wants to get out of school and go from graduation to making, the big bucks. And so, here what we do is we talk about embracing the process. If you embrace the process, then you have an opportunity to learn, to grow, but then also you can pivot. If there's changes that you don't want, maybe, you started as a civil engineer and you wanted to get into design, but because we have a lot of that. I think, Jose Carlos, you were looking at the design piece, right? And then now he's looking at, no, wait a minute, construction really is down. So they have an opportunity to kind of figure it out real time.
Right.
But again, for me and these interns, it's about embracing the process. They have to understand what that is. And everyone comes into their own in different times.
So I just kind of, and now since we've been talking about purpose and rooting you all with family type feel in the environment, what can you teach us old folk about what you've noticed in the workforce? Or I don't know, I mean, just give us a little bit of feedback of what you notice about the older generation.
Well, for example, I work every day with, I call him the MVP of the job site, our superintendent, Eugene. He's out there every day and he's great, but sometimes we get to help him, like Frank said, with the technology aspects of it. So we'll sit down sometimes, not very often when we got the time, and we'll go through, all the software we use and all those construction management tools that we have for them to keep bettering that, exactly.
Very cool. So you all have had a pretty phenomenal experience doing this internship, and I know that you all have a lot to share, a lot of value to what this experience has brought. But let's say that there's other Nextforce kids or students or youth coming in and listening to this. What advice would you give them?
To me, the whole point of, just like what Frank said, the whole point of an internship is that I think there's a lot of peer pressure on us to get things figured out while we're still in college. But the whole point of an internship is that you don't know what you want, so go try it out. And so that would be my biggest advice. Like, it's okay, you don't have to have everything figured out right here and right now. Just go try it. Just do it. Just take the leap of faith. If you don't like it, then you don't like it. But I think it's a very important quality to have, that courage. Because you'll always have that fear of the unknown and you don't know how it's going to turn out. But there's no such thing as a failure. Everything is a learning moment. And so that's a very important takeaway.
Especially early on, right?
Yeah.
If you don't like it.
Yeah, awesome. So, believe in yourself, put yourself out there, sometimes when you come in to work on certain industries and you get to meet professional people who are older than you, but people usually understand that you're a young professional, and since you're young, people will help you. That's what I've been noticing. So everybody's super open to helping and teaching you, and it's super beneficial to everybody, right? That's pretty much something that I would say, right? Just believe in yourself, don't be afraid, and go out there and do it.
Very cool. Does anybody else have anything else they'd like to share before we close out?
I mean, just other than that, we're going to continue to expand on this platform, this internship opportunity, and moving forward. So we encourage, and internships also, it's something absolutely the Nextforce, but there's also other workforce talent pockets that sometimes are not utilized as much, right? So, the assumption sometimes though, like, oh, they're young, they're lazy, we're really kind of busting myths and like pushing through. But same thing with people with who have a background in reentry, people with disabilities. All those are different talent pools that I think we're going to continue to, from WSB, we're going to continue to highlight and work with employers to see what fits best. But I just, it's amazing. Honestly, I think hearing you all and just kind of seeing what Aztec has done and the opportunities expanded, this is such a great program. I cannot wait to highlight it and make it just keep going, especially the impact to the construction industry, because even prior to COVID, the construction industry was one of those industries that was already struggling with workforce.
Shortages.
Absolutely. And so I think this, Frank, is just something that you and your team have really just...
Oh, it's special.
It really is, absolutely.
Yeah, it's special. And for me, it's just, again, spreading that message to our local small businesses that they need to, reach out to WSB and find out what other resources they have, because there's plethora of resources that are out there that they can take advantage of. And, again, if they can, come up with a internship program for their organization, I think.
And we went through some hiccups, so they have the benefit of not going through some. Because we got to let's be transparent. I mean, it wasn't the partnership and how robust and the level of execution that Frank had wanted, and several times we were on the phone with Nancy and Camarena, and it was just one of those things like, this is what we need, and sticking to it, and we're like, well, we can't, but it was just. It ended up really kind of providing what the employer wanted. And so all those lessons learned are going to be benefits to other employers as well, because, we've already been through those kind of hiccups. So thank you for that.
Well, that's the full conversation. Aztec, WSB, and our lovely Nextforce. Thank you all so much for joining us. And we will continue this conversation. I feel like it doesn't end here.
We're eager to hear your feedback. Find us on Twitter and LinkedIn and let it out. We don't always have a choice in the situations we face, but you do have a choice in subscribing to solutions. Join the Workforce Situation Room on your favorite podcast platform and hit subscribe, where you'll find a solution to every situation. The best way to serve the community is to get real and understand the pulse of the Borderplex. Till next month.